This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. Been a long time, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Got lots to talk about. We'll save the college stuff for next week. Just pro in this episode, this installment of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Got Lions and then Tigers and then a little bit of Red Wings and Pistons each. But first off, the Lions, they kicked off their preseason by losing to the New York Giants 14-3 at MetLife Stadium. Nate Sudfeld started, and he was awful. 13 of 24 for just 96 passing yards, while Hendon Hooker looked good until he suffered a concussion, and he was not the only one going down with a concussion. Antoine Green went down with a concussion as well. But Isaiah Williams looked good, just four catches, but 30 some odd yards or receiving yards. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts, Taylor, into what goes or what went into tonight's matchup against the Giants. First and foremost, good to see you. Good to hear from you again. It's been a while. Been a while for everybody else in the show. Had a couple of personal matters to attend to, but I'm back and ready to go. But as for tonight's game, as you mentioned, we've got to talk about how absolutely dreadful Nate Sudfeld looked out there. I understand he's been with the team for a while. He may be a good locker room person, but in terms of what he brings to A, on-field production, and B, what he potentially could be for you as a backup QB, if God forbid something happens to Jared Goff, oh no, that's the last thing you want to see, especially when you consider the fact that what I saw, he showed a supreme lack of either field awareness, field vision. He was taking or really a lack of read progression throughout the play. It's like he wasn't making the right reads with his receivers. In some instances, he either missed guys that were either open downfield or had a chance downfield to make a play. There was one play where I saw where it looked like he had James Mitchell out on the flat. He had another receiver downfield. But for some reason, due to whatever what was aiding or ailing his ability to just get out of the way or make a decision, instead of just throwing the ball away, he holds on to it and takes a bad sack. So that's where that lack of awareness that I talk about. And whenever he was just outside of the pocket, showed various displays of slow speed, I should say, not being able to get around to contain fast enough. There was even one play where he threw a very bad interception. He threw across his body. Throwing off balance was a throw you should never, ever, ever try to do. And thankfully, that got bailed out by the fact that the ball was fumbled and then recovered by the Lions, by Sione Vaki to be exact. And I'll get to him in just a little while. But Sudfeld was completely terrible. That's putting it nicely. Thank goodness he only played one half. And frankly, after what the limited action that we did see out of Hendon Hooker in that second half before he got hurt, had me already convinced that at the very least he should be above Sudfeld in the depth chart. And frankly, I would be surprised if Sudfeld, unless it's breaking in case of emergency, but I'd be surprised if Sudfeld is still with this team by next month. That's how
Yeah.
bad he looked to me tonight.
Yeah, he has to be cut without the shadow of a doubt. Hendon
Well, he
Hooker,
deserves to be cut. Saying he has to be is one thing. He deserves to be, but will he is another, because frankly, look at their spots. That's the only 3 QBs they got right now. And, unless they're able to make a deal and try to find someone, a veteran that went unsigned, or maybe looking to make a quick deal or whatever, on claim off waivers, whatever the case may be, that's going to be your QB room. And like I said, knock on wood, you better hope nothing happens to Jared Goff, because if it does, this season is pretty much screwed.
yeah,
Because there's no excuse. Even I get it. The backups, in terms of the offensive line, they had some of their own issues tonight. But I saw a couple of plays where Sudfeld was getting as clean of a pocket as you can possibly get with his protection, and he was just either missing guys, not on target with his throws, or just sailing them. So Sudfeld was completely off in all facets of the game. I was so glad that that Hooker got his chance to shine, and I'm really hoping that he's okay in terms of his concussion that he suffered. We got to remember, this is the first on-field action that he has had since he tore his ACL while in college 2 years ago. And frankly, from what I saw in terms of his mobility and his speed, those legs look like they still got some juice in them, plenty of juice in them. And it seems like that ACL is very well healed by in terms of how he was moving, and the fact that he trucked a defender on his way to getting a tough run. For the unfortunate part, that might have been the absolute play where he got concussed. But still, you admire, from what I saw, to me, he definitely deserves to be, like I said, to be above Sudfeld in the depth chart. And if they do happen to bring in another guy, that should be the guy. That guy would have had a better chance of competing with Hooker, the backup spot, than Sudfeld at this point.
yeah. Hopefully Hendon Hooker's okay. We just need to get word on him while Jared Goff just awaits his re-presence come regular season time. So with that being said, trending truth, speaking of the Lions, they'll honor Hall of Fame wide receiver Calvin Megatron Johnson and induct him to the Pride of the Lions during the halftime show of their September 20th Monday Night Football game.
Yeah,
And
that'll be the
it's honored.
Monday night game against Seattle, I believe.
Yeah. I got the Lions mobile app. I just re-downloaded it before their preseason kicked off.
Mm-hmm.
September. It's September 30th. Hang on a second. Timeout. It is against the Seahawks, not 20th. It's the 30th. Our bad on this one. Our mistake. There we go. September 30th. Thank you very much. So there's that. So again, a good honor within the organization to honor Calvin Johnson, just like they did with Barry Sanders.
Yeah, it's a move that was necessary and a move that had to happen, especially considering the fact that Calvin already had his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. You've seen since then there have been attempts and there have been little gestures being shown by the organization of trying to welcome Calvin back into the fold, back into the organization, because as you can remember, they did not have as amicable a parting of ways as you would have liked in terms of his retirement and what happened afterwards. Of course, with Calvin saying there was money that he was owed, that whole affair was as messy as it could have gotten. So the fact to see things progress to the fact to where, you're seeing his number and his name being retired amongst the Ring of Honor at Ford Field, something that you knew had to happen, but you just weren't sure of when it was going to happen. To see that happen now shows you that there's more than amending offenses. You've heard Calvin in recent years saying, he would hope to be as seen as a mentor for one of these young players, namely a Jameson Williams, for example. So the olive branches, in some way, shape, or form, have been shown and extended in the past. We probably won't know for a while the full detail, the full scope of how this reconciliation come about or has come about, but it is very promising and very good and very happy to see that things are much better between the Lions and Calvin than where they were at the time after his retirement. Very similar to how they were able to patch things up with Barry. Granted, that took that was its own journey that had to take a good number of years, but it's good to see in terms of the ownership and the front office recognizing, hey, this is one of our greatest players ever. He deserves the honor. He deserves the prestige of having his legacy being honored and remembered. Let's give him what he deserves. Let's give him the flowers that he deserves. So kudos to Sheila, kudos to Rod Wood, and the entire organization for doing the right thing. Got nothing negative to say about this at all.
Exactly.
If I can, though, real briefly, before we get back to the other topics, I wanted to touch a little bit more on the game tonight, if you didn't mind.
Yeah, Connor Gowan also left. He was carted off the field, by the way. I was going to mention that, but there was something else you were going to touch on.
Yeah, he got carted off. We mentioned Antoine Green getting concussed as well. I thought he had looked good as the game had progressed in terms of one of those guys to look out for as potential wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 3 on the depth chart behind guys like J-Mo and St. Brown and even down to Peoples-Jones to an extent. So there was a couple of guys that you had to look at and pay attention to what they were going to do, how they were going to do to make themselves stand out. One was Doris Fountain, and another was Antoine Green. I thought Green, before he got hurt, was showing the ability to make some plays, especially on screens, being able to at least get out front and move with the ball well. Hope he gets well, too, from his concussion, but I think he could be a good piece to have on the depth chart for the wideout room. Worth noting that tonight was a rainy night in general, and also that none of the starters played for both teams. At least key players, like we didn't see any of the first team guys in the offense, and the double would go for the defensive line. Now I'll get to the defensive line in a second, but from what I saw in general from the defense, they did as well as you could have possibly done, with the fact that you know that they were dealing with a mix of either second team guys and or potentially rookies. And speaking of rookies, I really liked what I saw from tonight from out of Rakestraw, and the fact that they didn't even throw Terrion Arnold's way just one time shows to me that he was paying well attention with his footwork. He was staying on cue with his man, and he didn't get flustered at all from how he was playing in the zone, because I couldn't remember a single time where any of the Giants quarterbacks threw his way in the snaps that he was out there. So good for him, good for Rakestraw, who made a real good tackle on the third down play in an open field that forced a punt, because frankly, that was the difference between either a forced punt or a potential first down if that tackle's not made. Good play, good rep, good snap by the rookie there on that one. In terms of figuring out secondary combinations that work, you got guys like your new acquisitions like Amik Robertson, for example. You have him out there as well. Brandon Joseph was out there. He got himself an interception. Good for him. But it's all about figuring out the right combination, especially when you have guys that you got to work in the right rotation. When you do have your first team starters, when you have your Brian Branches, and you have your Millie Fan Wu as an example. Now, granted, one of those spots may be open up, because let's not forget, Emmanuel Mosley unfortunately did get injured again. He tore his pectoral muscle recently, so that means he's out indefinitely. That's real bad luck, considering the fact that he was coming off of back-to-back years of tearing his ACL in his knee. So to have that happen to him, you got to feel crushed for the guy. You don't know how long he's going to be out. You would assume it'll be for the majority of the season, if not for the entire season. But that does open up another spot in that secondary for one of these guys to get more time, to get more reps, and get more snaps. Speaking of injuries, we can go through them real quick. Michael Badgley, one of our kickers, he tore his hamstring. He is likely done for the season, because that's that injury.
Oh, he's out for the season, all right.
Yeah, he's likely out, because an injury like that affects a kicker way differently than it would affect any other player or any other skilled player on the roster. Which, as you put right there in the info, Taylor, that opens the door wider, even more so for Jake Bates, who I have to say, looked pretty darn good tonight, considering the fact that he nailed a 53-yard kick outdoors and in the rain.
Yeah.
And he made it look easy. It looked like he could have hit it from 60. That's how good it looked.
Oh, man.
Who knows? We may have a kicker on our hands. The campaign, in terms of that starter from when we saw him play with the Panthers leading up to now, it's been a successful grassroots campaign, if you want to call it that. But let's see how it keeps it up, and especially with the fact that Badger is going to be out for the year. And another injury to pass along to you guys that might be of note, John Comiskey, one of the guys on the defensive line, he tore his MCL. He is out indefinitely as well.
Oh,
Likely.
that's right. Kaminsky, yeah.
Kaminsky.
He suffered it in practice.
Yeah, that happened in practice. So in terms of when he'll be able to come back, I think it was probably him and or Mosley that they said if possible, playoffs will be a possibility. But at the moment, they're both out indefinitely. And speaking of practice, we can use that to transition to the fact that training camp leading up to this game, training camp had begun, and it started with the fact that we had those joint practices with the Giants where there was, to say the least, they were scrappy. You were seeing fights on multiple days between
two of them.
players. A lot of back and forth, jaw and physical contact and all that sort of thing. You got players being emotional, it's essentially, but things really not getting too out of control. It's something what you expect. It's frankly, whenever teams are having joint practices, it's like a game within a game. They want to show that alpha dominance. They want to show, whose territory it is. That's that inner edge, that inner almost psychotic level of competitiveness that can only happen between two NFL teams. So I'm not really, frankly, surprised to see that kind of thing happen. In terms of what I saw from tonight, there was a couple of players that stood out to me. Ben Neiman, one of the linebackers, I thought he showed real good field awareness, be able to make a couple of plays, make a couple of necessary tackles, get to his spot when necessary. On the defensive line, there was a young man by the name of Isaac Ukwu. That's UKWU, undrafted, I believe. He had himself a sack, a couple of rushes, another hit or so. He looked real good with some of the second unit guys. Also good to see James Houston back out in there. He was getting some snaps also at the linebacker spot.
Thank God.
Getting some balance of trying to showcase his run defense as opposed to being only a guy used for pass rush situations. And I mentioned Sione Vaki earlier. I have to mention him again here because he looked out of the guys that I saw in terms of that backup running back room, he looked to be the most consistent. He was showing tough running, forward running, being able to plant his foot well, tough to bring down in some instances, and also good awareness on his end to see that the fumble that happened occurred after that interception means that was a live ball from the pickup. He got it, and the Lions were able to retain possession somehow. So Sione Vaki, if it pans out, could be one of those mid-late round steals that Brad Holmes once again got from everybody else underneath everyone's nose.
Yeah. And in other news, the Lions sign offensive tackle. The Lions sign offensive tackle Taylor Decker to a 3-year, $60 million contract extension, including $31.8 million guaranteed. So Taylor Decker stays put.
Stays put. He's going to stay at the left tackle spot. And frankly, I'm more than okay with this move. Decker has been through this team since the Patricia era / my goodness, Bob Quinn era, Matt Patricia era.
Quinn Tricia, yep. But Decker has evolved.
Actually, I think he was here when Caldwell was the coach even.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's shown great evolution, a great will and endurance. Shows a test of his character to be here throughout the losing, be out throughout the bad seasons, and to see him stay long enough to see that turnover become what it's become under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. You love to see it for a player like him because he's been one of the longest, if not the longest, tenured team players on this team currently, and knowing how well he plays with this offensive line, especially when you got Sewell on the other end of the tackle brigade for him, the tackle turnstiles, if you want to call it that. Um, just a great fit in general, and I love the fact that with this deal, depending on how long that he plays afterwards, or if he decides to go take another 1 year or 2 year deal after this, it essentially guarantees that Decker is going to be with this team for his whole career. He has a line for life. And frankly, he's one of those guys that deserves it for what he's been through, for what he's gotten us helped us gotten to so far, and what we expect to still get to in the future. So could not be more happy and more well deserving. Good job for Taylor Decker. Glad to see him going to be here, likely for his whole career.
Yeah, and he and Penei Sewell especially are going to keep on working together hand in hand in the offensive line.
Yeah, and speaking of the offensive line, we have mentioned the fact that they did add to their depth by signing veteran Ike Botker or Botker, however you pronounce
I
his
think
name.
it's Botker, yeah.
Botker, he is a 6-year veteran. He has played with the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Colts as of last year. It's a 1-year deal. Really nothing to sneeze at in terms of cap space or anything. If anything, this is just giving you more offensive line depth, especially when you have some of these younger players that you've drafted for the past couple of years, like Giovanni, like Montgomery, like Colby Sorsdal, for example. Those kind of guys, you want them to get ready in the meanwhile, so that way when these guys are gone, like some of these veterans are gone, like even guys like Glass now and Ragnow, for example, that even though you'll still have Decker and Sewell, and soon Decker may soon be gone too, but now that's when you have those other guys coming up right behind you, like Sorsdal, like Giovanni, for example. So fine with the move. You know what this team's best strength is at. You keep adding to that strength. Pure and simple.
They do, yes. All right, so moving on to Tigers. They traded 4 players. First of all, catcher Carson Kelly to the Texas Rangers for 2 minor league prospects, right-handed pitcher Tyler Owens and catcher Liam Hicks. And that made room for them to call up number 11 prospect catcher Dylan Dingler from the AAA Toledo Mudhens.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with that. So not a sexy trade, but a logical one, just to see what Dylan Dingler is made of in the Major League Baseball level.
Exactly, because you have him. He's one of your highly rated prospects for a reason. Eventually, he's going to have to get some playing time up on the show. And if that's the case, also consider the fact that you're probably not likely going to pay Carson Kelly the amount of money that he would have wanted anyway. See what you could have gotten from him. And the fact that you did get 2 minor league prospects at the very least with this deal. You did get a couple of pitchers. Chase Lee is one. Joseph Montalvo is another. I'm sorry, excuse me. No. You got Liam. Yeah, like you said, you got Tyler Owens for Kelly. So one was a pitcher, and then you got another catcher at Hicks. So at the very least, you were shoring up your backstop with by getting a catcher in return, while also bringing up or calling up your minor league prospect as well. So yeah, the deal could have been a little bit better, but I'm fine with it. If I would give it a grade, it'll be a fine C plus B minus type of range.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Carson Kelly's was hitting prior to the trade was hitting like 240 something with an OPS is like 716 or something like that. Not terrible, but it could be better.
Yeah, like I said, middle of the road, but still decent. So, you got the best deal, the best package you could have gotten for how he was performing for this season.
Yeah. But speaking of Joseph Montalvo, the Tigers have traded relief pitcher Andrew Chafin to the Texas Rangers for Montalvo and pitcher Chase Lee. So, What's your grade on that?
I'm fine with this one. This is one I can give a B minus. This is a move of trying to prepare more of what you can do for the future, like within, let's say, 2026, 2027 type of range, where if you are building around the right young players, and also keyword, if you're willing to, spend to get more certain players. These are the type of guys that you want coming up that can learn in the system, yes, develop when necessary, and or could also be used, if possible, to get another to help bring in another key player at a skill position if it comes to another deadline in the near future. So you always have to consider that, take that into consideration with deals like this. So I got no problem with it. Probably give it around a B minus grade in general.
All right. And then the big trade. They traded Jack Flaherty to the Los Angeles Dodgers for minor league catcher Theron Lorenzo and minor league shortstop Trey Sweeney. Now, of course, there have been rumors that Jack Flaherty was going to be traded. At least the Tigers kept Tarek Skubal and all that, but a minor league shortstop Trey Sweeney. That that the fact that the Tigers traded for a shortstop, which could actually be the potential replacement for
Baez.
for Javier Baez.
God.
Yeah, because they have 3 years left on his contract, but they do have the option to buy him out after this regular season, from what I've been reading on social media and on Spot Track.
I'll believe it when that happens. So in the meantime, you get one of the best or the better young prospects at the shortstop position as ready as you can. And the fact that you're able to get it from the Dodgers, who are always in win now mode, that will always want to make a big move or big splash. You could have gotten probably a little bit more, but I like what you did get. You did get 2 of their top 25 prospects. You got yourself a guy in Lorenzo, who can double as either a catcher or a first baseman, which is key because that may come in handy depending on whether or not this whole deal with Torkelson either improves or stays at the plateau that it's at now. And like you mentioned before, Sweeney, that's your potential Javi Baez replacement down the line, who, by the way, Baez, I will say, before he had to deal with his recent bout of neck soreness, was making things a little bit better on his end in terms of being productive with his hitting. There was a stretch late last month where he hit 3 home runs in a row, which turned out to be his first 3 homers of the entire year.
Each home run, by the way, what was just 1 hit per game. But his numbers are still way down, and it looks like the Mariners are just gonna. Looks like the Mariners are gonna come back and win. By the way.
Oh, lovely. Well, that's a dapper because from when I was last watching, the Tigers were on their way to a sweep, based behind the fact that this game was featured.
Will Vest just fucking blew it.
Yeah, the fact that this was a bullpen game coming into it, you knew you were going to be lacking because you already been using up some arms. Also, the fact that what injuries to your bullpen and your rotation that put you in this spot, you kind of had to deal. You're dealing with the hand that you're dealt with. So really disappointing to hear that, especially the fact that Parker Meadows, with the tear that he's been on as of late, it's been a small sample size, but he's been having his rehab assignments and his stints and whatnot, and from what we've seen of him so far, he's been absolutely completely raking. So I like the fact that coming into tonight's game, at least, he had about a 385 batting average, OBP over 400, slugging over 730, couple homers, and showing great defense as well. So
he made a leaping catch, robbing a home run.
One of the contenders for catch of the year, and like you said, he had another RBI double tonight. Very unfortunate that the bullpen blew it, or at least whoever the guy was that blew it. But still, they did win this series. They did take 2 out of 3 against Seattle. Certain the fact that they did that, after they had a good finish to the first half by winning a series against the Dodgers. Started well by splitting against Cleveland, winning against the Blue Jays. Then, unfortunately, though, they lost 7 of the next 9. And what was even worse, that 9-game stretch was against divisional opponents. those like of games that you're going to lose. Those are the ones that you can least afford to lose, because that puts you behind in terms of ground within the division and also ground in the wild card chase. So that left you essentially barely struggling for air. Now, Frank. Now it's a good thing. Thankfully, they rebounded. They took 2 out of 3 with Seattle. Really could have gone for a sweep for tonight, but they blew it. But I will say there is still promise for some of these players. Colt Keith in July, for example, he looked terrific. Had over 320 batting average. Had an OBP over 400, slugging over 640. Had OPS over 1,000. And another player that caught my attention was Justin Henry Malloy. He had himself a good power surge in July. He hit 4 homers. That's bringing his season total to 8, considering the fact that he just started playing in June. OPS now at 717 for the season. Yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing from some of these young guys in the lineup. I'm also loving the fact that we kept our ace. We kept Turk Skubal. We now know, at least for this season, he's not going to be dealt. We do have at least 2 more years of team control of his contract. It's just a matter of building around him and actually showing that you're going to commit to him long term by paying him the money that he deserves. Because frankly, he is not only the front runner for the Cy Young, he is the runaway front runner for the Cy Young. If he were on a better team that was in contention for the playoffs, it would be a debate on whether or not this would be a unanimous Cy Young. That's how well and how dominant that Skubal has been for the Tigers this season. And I'm just glad that for the very least that they're willing to try to invest in keeping him long term, but they got to do better in terms of building around him and spend some damn money. Are you getting the hint, Chris Ilitch?
Yeah, they need a real cleanup hitter. They need real starting pitching around Tarek Skubal in the entire starting rotation. They can't just keep starting relievers when they want to contend for a postseason spot.
Well, you better get as much. You better get more stars that you can, because as much as I like to see Matt Manning more, it's a rarity, and of course we all know of the issues that Casey Mize seems to be cursed with himself. By the way, he had a rehab start tonight, or rehab assignment rather tonight in the minors.
Kerry Carpenter had that same thing probably a week ago.
Yeah, so that's another injury that you got to overcome. And by the way, Riley Green is also hurt. So again, you could not have asked for worse timing for these injuries to happen to the Tigers. It's pretty much put an anchor in on their hopes for wanting to do something in terms of making a potential playoff run or playoff chase. But you still see promise of what this team can be with the pieces that I had mentioned so far earlier, in terms of sprinkled throughout the lineup, and of course guys like Skubal that you have for your pitching.
Yeah. So Javier Baez has a 493 OPS. I think it's a 179 batting average.
Yeah, well, that OPS was like way lower than that. I think it was like around below 200 or so. And then like for July and August, he essentially averaged a 600 OPS in back-to-back months before he got hurt. So that's what brought it up to. It's still bad, still dreadful, but it's not as god-awful and horrible as it once was earlier this year.
Yeah. And then Shelby Miller has suffered 6 blown saves now. He blew a 2-0 lead by giving up a 3-run home run to let's see. Yeah, that was MJ Melendez, his 13th on the year in the top of the 9th. And Shelby Miller, he's got a 5.85 ERA.
Oh my goodness, that's
5-7. A 103 WHIP, which means nothing. Still a 5.85 ERA, and that's terrible. Shelby Miller, that AJ Hinch brought him to freaking close the game, just like he did with Will Vest tonight. Tyler Holton should be their closer, to be honest, because he's been red hot as a relief pitcher. Will Vest and Shelby Miller have individually sucked ass. period. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've watched the games. I know you have too, Ed, but they Shelby Miller absolutely sucks. He needs to hang it up. They need to cut him. Will Vest, he needs to be cut too. Otherwise, send him down to the minors. DFA him. Oh, by the way, one more trade to go. They traded outfielder Mark Cahna to the San Francisco Giants for right-handed pitcher Eric Silva. What's your grade on that?
Yeah, C+ because Cahna was a massive disappointment this season.
Trash.
He was brought in to provide more production with the offense, more power. Did not show that at all. Very minimal production as well. So seeing him being dealt, I'm not surprised. And if you're gonna get somebody, why not get another pitcher? Because to me, I've always been a believer in the philosophy of pitching should always be your base if you're building a baseball team, because with great pitching, you're never ever out of a game. So
yeah, I'm going to give it a mid-range B because, like we just mentioned, Mark Cahna has been a liability for this team, and especially with his hitting. Sucked. Oh, yeah, that's right. We got another trade. The Tigers acquired right-handed pitcher Ricky Vanasco from the Los Angeles Dodgers in exchange for cash considerations. So the Tigers get some asset back, which is apart from the Flaherty trade.
Yeah.
So what's your grade on that?
It really, honestly, that really doesn't deserve a grade itself. You're just getting a guy. You're just paying for another guy. So we'll cut that out. Yeah, we'll cut that out. Let's move on a little bit. Red Wings signed Joe Veleno to a 2-year, $4.55 million contract to avoid arbitration. So they saved him a roster spot and some money. Well, he has shown improvement in the seasons that he's able to play long enough games. I know at the start there was a couple times where he had minimal games played, but over the course of this past couple of years, he's played 80 games, I believe, in each of the past 2 seasons, and he has shown improvement of not just point production but also goal scoring as well. I think he had about 12 goals this season or something to that effect. I know he also had a couple of power play goals for sure. That I know for certain. And frankly, if this is a deal to where, he might have been a little bit of an overpay, but you can have him as a good depth piece on your third or fourth line. No issue with it. We'll see where it goes from there, especially the fact that you are bringing back Patrick Kane. You have to keep that in consideration.
Yep, and which we mentioned on our previous episode, which we talked about. We also talked about them signing Vladimir Tarasenko, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Mm-hmm. And then the Pistons, they hired yet another assistant coach, Vitaly Potapenko.
I pronounce Vitaly, but it could be pronounced in any other way. But Potapenko, he is an assistant coach being brought in to join JB Bickerstaff's staff. A brief note on him: he was a former player. I think he was in the '96 draft that had Iverson, Kobe, Steve Nash, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, all that. Former player, 6'10", from Ukraine. He actually garnered a nickname throughout his time in the league called the Ukrainian Train, I believe. Ever since his playing days ended, though, he started working on coaching staffs. Did some work in college. I think he did a little bit of work with the Santa Cruz Warriors. And for the past decade or so, he has been with only 2 staffs. He's been with the Cavs from about 2012, 2013 to around 2017, 2018. So that includes the year that Cleveland won the championship in 2016 against the Warriors. And he's also been, for the past 6 or 7 years, with the Grizzlies on their coaching staff as well. It was during that time that he also spent a year or two on the same staff as J.B. Bickerstaff before Bickerstaff went to Cleveland. So there's that experience of known camaraderie already there being brought into the play by this move. So I'm pretty sure Trading Landon was paying close enough attention to that. And when you consider his size and you do a little bit of research on what he's done before, I think one could assume, if one were to assume what he's brought here for, it could be helping with development with some of our bigs, namely one Jalen Duren. That would be
Yeah.
my I might keep a lookout for. How is he going to help get Duren's game improved? Can he help him add a little bit more diversity to his offensive game? Can he help him add a potential, not necessarily a jump shot per se, but something to where he's not seen as only a rim guy or only a paint guy, so to speak. So just those little aspects of what to look out for in terms of what Potapenko can bring to this team with his skills as assistant coach.
All right. So, yeah, that's a good hire. Very good hire. More chemistry within the Pistons coaching staff. That's one way I would put that.
Mm-hmm.
Business chemistry, that would be. So, another segment of what we've learned. So, what do we learn this episode?
Well, frankly, in terms of what we learned from tonight, we learned that the Lions are making incredible strides in improving their relationship with Calvin Johnson. They've made sure that Taylor Decker has gotten the type of extension to his contract to where he will be a Lion for life. They've added more to their depth to their offensive line by signing Ike Butker. They had to deal with the unfortunate string of injuries, whether it be from Emmanuel Mosley or Michael Batchley or Jonathan Minsky. But that's the nature of the game. That's the nature of football. Sometimes you deal with what you got to deal with, and it's next man up. We've learned that they're frankly already in a mood to start playing right now by the looks of how training camp has begun. By the way, we didn't get a chance to mention how doggone good James Williams has been looking. So that's another play to look out for in terms of what can be brought upon or have that breakout or explosive productive year that we expect to see. So we know that they're in the mood to start the season now, about how they're getting into fights with the Giants. What we saw and what we learned from their preseason number one game against the Giants tonight is that they still probably need to bring in another guy for the QB room, because Nate Sudfeld is absolute trash. Hendon Hooker looked terrific before he got hurt. I hope he heals up well from his concussion. We learned that Jake Bates, it's the kicker spot. It's Jake Bates' job to lose. We learned that that Rakeshaw, the rookie, has good on-field tendencies and awareness already. And we also learned that they're figuring out they're doing their best to figure out the best secondary combinations with the players that they know that they're going to play, and the players that they were going to play but will have to play now due to the Mosley injury. And also, we learned that there's other guys that's trying to make a name for themselves by earning some extra reps and extra snaps. Guys like Ben Neiman, guys like Isaac Ukwu, and also guys like Sionevaki. That's what we learned in terms of what the Lions, from up till now with the beginning of training camp and now this preseason debut. And frankly, we learned from the Tigers a lot. We learned that this is a season where more than likely they're not going to make the playoffs again. They're not going to go for the wild card spot. But you see a promise of a young core to build around, young stars that can be your future. We learned that they are still willing to keep a hold on Tarek Skubal as long as possible. But what we don't know yet is what they're going to do with these 2 years. Will they build around him? Will they pay him when the time comes? We'll see. But we have learned that, you have guys that can be useful in Colt Keith and Justin Henry Malloy and in Parker Meadows. We learned that Javi Baez is getting a little bit of his groove back with him hitting 3 home runs as of late, him bringing his OBP up, his OPS, I should say, before he had his injury.
Only up to 493.
Yeah, it's still better than 193. And then we learned that they made deals.
Oh, better than 450.
Right, that too. But we also learned that they made deals at the deadline. Some good, some could be better. But I like the fact that they were able to get something done at the deadline, move players that had to be moved, and they still kept their ace. They still kept Tariq Skubal.
Yeah. So what I've learned, yes, the Lions need to cut Nate Sudfeld. Jake Bates is their kicker, of course. Yeah, screw Michael Badgley anyway. Jake Bates can kick in the weather and in long distances. Way better than Michael Badgley. Way better than Riley Patterson. The Tigers, yeah, they still need to cut Javier Baez. His numbers are still not good enough, even though he hit 3 home runs. Still hitting one hit. Still all in one hit games. That Baez never even had Baez never even had a 2-hit game in that span anyway. That span the proof is in the pudding. MLB.com has the whole schedule, the stats, the box scores. I've seen the whole. I've scoured all the stats. They're there. That's not good enough for me. Shelby Miller definitely needs to be cut. GTFO. Thank you very much. And then the Red Wings save Veleno. Not to mention Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond. We forgot to touch on that. There was an article from the Score. Head coach Derek Lalonde was seeing even more progress from Seider and Raymond as the last regular season progressed. It was Lucas Raymond especially was amazing. We've seen that before, and then the Pistons have added even more business chemistry within their coaching staff.
I gotta make mention. I've seen the play where on how the Tigers lost tonight. I can't really blame the pitcher when the friggin' outfielder Ryan Vilade, who frankly has looked just uneasy for me at all tonight. I did not like his presence. Did not like how he looked at the plate.
He's not ready.
He missed a catch. He tried to go for a diving catch. It was 2 out. Instead of playing the ball, he went for a dive. He missed. The ball went by him, and that allowed the 3 runs to score for Seattle to win. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Should he have let it drop?
I would have played it. I would have played it and just get it to the cutoff, man, as much as possible. I get it. It's 2 outs. You're trying to end the game, but
well, it could have tied the game and sent it to extras. But seriously, Will Vest allowed those base runners to get on in the first place. Vilade helped him blow it. Karma's a bitch, man. That's an indictment on the team. That's an indictment on Vest. That's an indictment on the rest of the team.
Yep.
So that's all of what we've learned. On our next episode, we'll talk about Mel Tucker suing MSU and the Connor Stallions scandal spreading even further. But with that being said, I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast in the can. Follow the show on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth. And like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Watch each of our episodes in full to help improve our watch hours, and follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Business shout-outs go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale. The B4 Foundation, high school football is near as well. The Ithaca, I'm pretty much clearly the voice of the Ithaca Yellow Jackets on WMLM 105.9 FM 1520 AM, because we're covering all home and road games. I'm calling all home and road games for the Yellow Jackets high school varsity football team. Cali tickets, by the way, as we get back to those business endorsements. Cali tickets, call Mark Oldman at 877-225-8425 or visit calitickets.com. Creative embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream. Like their Facebook page. Follow them on TikTok at the Food Mafia LLC. And on Instagram at the Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. Their flavor of the week this week, Raspberry Jubilee that includes raspberry and I believe dark chocolate. It's raspberry and fudge brownie. Oh man, that is freaking tempting. Yeah, that is also that's tempting, almost like the cordial cherry. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook. Simply delightful, with over 100 locations around the state of in the state of Michigan, especially here in Cadillac, where Lisa Beck, one of my friends, works. That's in town, like it's in downtown Cadillac. Union Barber in Birmingham and Ferndale, back downstate. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, near Lansing, where Jim Lyons works. United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield. And, of course, Wellbeing with Catherine Palms. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. We'll talk next week. Until then, I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith, signing off. But remember, we observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay on the lookout, everyone. Ta-ta. Hit them with a hind.
Yeah, stay safe. And by the way, quick shout out. Thank you to Cleveland for your hospitality on SummerSlam. I was able to meet up with two young ladies that was doing their own little sports thing. I don't know if it was a podcast or discussion or group, whatnot, but they were discussing football in general. They asked me a couple of questions about the fallout of Harbaugh leaving and was the right move when it happened. Their names escape me at the moment, but I know that they were in section 534. I was in section 531. If they're able to see this, please get back in contact with me. Really enjoyed your time. Really had a good time with the interview, and overall had a great time at SummerSlam in Cleveland. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see y'all next week.
Have them subscribe and share our episode on YouTube and on Spreaker, by the way.
But if we can find them.
And follow us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. So that's it. Ta-ta for now. Power to the people. Hit them with a hind.